So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And we're here today to talk about a link that kind of came out of right field or right back field, if you want to use that pun. And somebody that I didn't really know a whole pile about. And instead of sitting here and trying to tell you guys that I knew a bit about him, but I haven't had any chance to study him, I was talking to my good mate Steve here from Villa Analytics that everybody here, I'm sure, knows very well. And Steve knows a decent bit about him. So I said, hey, why don't you come on and let's chat about him. Welcome back, Steve. It's been a long time since we've chatted on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me back.
Not at all. Anytime. But so Aston Villa, obviously, we've diverted a lot of funds, but we've spent an awful lot so far, I suppose, on two incomings and a free transfer. But obviously, we were all, I think everybody was waiting for us to get in those kind of squad filler or maybe those potential signings. And this looks to be one of the first ones that we're seeing. As I say, Marc Pubill. Pubill. I'm going to alternate between the two and pretend that I know how to pronounce his surname. From Levante, right back. Bit of a giant. Talk to me about him, because I watched 2 games of his today already, but I didn't make too many notes on him. But I want to know a small bit more about him. So let's go. Tell me all about him.
Yeah, I think the first thing that jumps off the page is definitely the height, isn't it? 6'3". He is absolutely massive. And I think he uses his body quite well when he plays. He has, I think, quite often when you see these younger guys that are so tall, they don't really have a great understanding of their frame. You know, you look at like Kai Havertz, for example, can sort of trip over his own feet a bit. And I don't think that's really an issue for him. I think he's quite clever with his body, likes to lean into players when he's got the ball and use his physicality to try and win it back. It's a very, very Emery signing, I think, in terms of the fact a lot of his data would sort of point him out to be a centre-back playing right back. Which is something we might expect from Emery, liking that right back to tuck in. But also, when the time comes for him, he's very, very direct down that right flank. He loves making just bombarding runs forward, playing give and goes, 1-2s. That's what his game is all about, going forward and putting those deep crosses in.
Yeah, it's like, as I say, I only kind of out of the corner of my eye watched a couple of games. And one thing you mentioned there, that he knows how to use his body, get his arm across players when they're trying to get around him, or John McGinn style, shove that arse out into the open space to try and make him a bigger target to run around. And I saw that. I watched the game against Alves, and it was Albacete, and he did that. He chased the guy down from quite a distance. He's fast. He looked fast to me in the games that I saw. Good recovery speed anyway. I don't know what he's like running with the ball. I didn't take much notice of it, but I remember 1 or 2 times I saw that he had pretty decent recovery speed, and he looks like he's comfortable with the ball at his feet. I suppose I'd expect a former Spanish under 19 to be pretty comfortable with the ball at his feet, but he is, and that's what, okay, I fell for the stereotype of 6'3" young kid who looks like a centre back playing right back, but his feet didn't look like an issue to me at all. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that relationship with the ball for his height is really impressive. He's good in tight spaces, good when he's pressed against the touchline. But I think one thing, when he's on the ball, he's much, much better when he's facing the way he wants to go. I think he's a little bit uncomfortable when he's got his back turned to the play, getting pressure from behind, and he can sort of tend to just swipe at the ball a bit and just get it out of danger. Maybe you'd like to see him develop a little bit more composure. But when he is driving with the ball, he's so touch tight. He's got a great first touch as well. And I really agree with what you say in terms of his recovery pace. I think those long legs, the long strides, it allows him to cover like large distances over quite quickly, really. So yeah, I agree completely.
And just after thinking of, there's a situation so we've talked an awful lot about him defending, and we're going to alternate between the two just as bits pop into my mind because I've got no show notes for this one. But I remember there was a passage of play. It was around, if you guys want to go back and watch the game they played against Alves last year, I think it was around the 50th minute, 51st minute. He picks up a loose ball on the edge of the area. And just because you mentioned when he was, he's close to the touchline, tight spaces, he picked up the ball on the edge of the area and he was kind of forced out towards the touchline. And he does a little pirouette and nutmegs the guy that's coming towards him, and then continues on to get the cross into the box. Now the cross was cleared, but I looked at it and I was kind of going, didn't expect that. No, certainly did not expect him to do that. And I'm not saying that that's a massive part of his game, but when we talk about his usefulness or his ability to be able to use the ball, he has a bit of cockiness about him as well, which I think, for a 20-year-old, you mentioned that when he's facing away from the play or when he's got his back, if he's back to the play facing against his own goals, I think that could just really be a 20-year-old playing senior football. It could be that cautiousness, that ultra cautiousness. I don't want to be the next Jimmy Traore kind of a situation, and that could be it. But yeah, he does have a bit about him going forward as well, albeit that he's more defensive minded, but he does have a small bit about him going forward. I think he scored a goal last season, if I'm not mistaken. Have you seen anything of him going forward? Because I've taken very little notes other than that pirouette against Alves.
Yeah, so he's not really much of like a penetrative passer creator yet. I think he would benefit from starting to attack the byline a bit more in the way we see from Alex Moreno. And I think really, I like what you say about his problem being a 20-year-old playing senior football, because I think that's the case with a lot of his problems. And that's why I think right now he's not really at the level of the team. But in terms of his potential, so many of his problems are the right problems to have at that age. It's fixable stuff. Going forward, yeah, he's got good link-up play, very good driving with the ball. And I think there's no reason why he can't develop into sort of real attacking asset because of how much he likes to overlap. He loves to get ahead of the ball. And really the give and go, I think, is what you see from him so often because he's so two-footed, by the way. Dribbling and passing with his weak foot, he's so comfortable, and that allows him to just sort of play against the touchline. He knows how to use his skills well, play the ball inside, get ahead of the ball, and if he just adds that sort of driving to the touchline from there to his game, I think he can be a great attacking asset.
Yeah, and he seems to be able to ping a long ball as well. Now, obviously, once again, playing on that at that right back, they were really just kind of straight balls over the top of the other full back to a winger or whatever, or maybe to a marauding Wesley Moraes, former or current Aston Villa player, should I say? Maybe that's where this has come from. Maybe they spotted him while had some scouts out there looking at Wesley last season. Things like this happen, and it could have just been a circumstance thing whereby but Manchis comes in and goes, do you know what, there's a good kid at Levante, and then Johan Lange is there going, yeah, actually, is his name Marc Pubill? And then he goes, yeah, that's him. Oh yeah, we spotted him last year when we had scouts out there watching Wesley and seeing what his progress was like. These things happen, and that's why they can be kind of serendipitous in that way. But he's I didn't notice he was two-footed, I will be honest. But then again, as I say, I was only paying fleeting interest in the games at the time. But what I did notice from him was, now we spoke about a 20-year-old playing football, playing senior football, and maybe the decision-making was cautious. But he's not very cautious when he dives into the tackle. He has no problem fronting up with men, with actual men. Like, I've seen him jump into tackles, win the ball. I've seen him jump into tackles and absolutely blow a man out of it. It was one or two that I saw that I couldn't believe he didn't get a yellow card for, and that was in the same game. But so he's cautious that he doesn't lose the ball, but he's not cautious of making sure that he's friends with the man that he's marking. What do you make of that? Did you see that? Did that come across to you, or is there anything else from his defensive side of things that you've seen?
Yeah, I had in my notes that he's a bit snappy defensively. But what I do like about his aggression is that he's quite quick in his first step, and he's got those long legs. So you see him make a lot of interceptions because he's so quick to that first ball, because he is willing to maybe take a bit of a risk, dive into it. More often than not, you'll see him getting there. The one thing I saw from his defensive game that worries me a little bit, and probably my biggest issue with him, is he has this tendency to sort of run away from the ball while he's following his winger. And there was a couple clips I've seen where, the ball would like hit him on the back and he would get a bit lucky. But I think he needs a bit of coaching. He needs to cut that out of his game and be a bit more aware of what's happening behind him, because sometimes he will just be sprinting away from the play, basically trying to get back and cover his winger. And
is it a case, do you think, sorry to jump in, but is it, just to clarify, is it a case that you think he's at the stage, probably once again a 20-year-old problem, whereby you're trusting your athletic ability above all else? Is it something like that?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of that, and also a bit of just he hasn't had a coach come along and say stop that, which hopefully Unai Emery will do if we do pick him up. The other thing I noticed as well is when he's up against sort of small, bursty, tricky, pacey wingers, he can struggle a little bit just because of his height. If they're really trying to turn him inside out while he's snapping at the ball there, keeping it away from him, he can get a little bit confused over his legs. But mostly it's reasonably impressive from a fullback at his age. It's above want to see, I'd say.
Who would you liken him to, Steve? I'm going I know if FB Ref likens him to Serge Aurier. I think it's actually quite a decent call on that. He's not the rounded player just yet. I thought at one stage Serge Aurier was going to be a rounded player. I don't think he ever really was. But the reason that I picked him from the guys that FB Ref mentioned was a lot of people, when they think of that Villarreal team that Unai Emery had, they think of the one fight, who was very, very important. But Serge Aurier was always also on that team as well, and that Villarreal team. Or maybe he came the year afterwards. And it's just interesting. A similar player type, of a similar height, similar skill set. Obviously, at a very, very good moldable age. If he's similar to him now, maybe Unai Emery sees that as a type of player. Maybe the one fight thing, it was coincidence or kind of circumstantial at Villarreal, and maybe it really was that other type of player he was looking for. Because I'm on the bus. I've always been on this. I think I'm the lone shouter at the moment that says Unai Emery has had fullbacks that were like 5'6", 5'7" for the majority of his career, and one fight is the outlier, not the actuality usually. So do you think that this is it's just coincidental that he's kind of similar to Serge Aurier? Or who would you liken him to? Because maybe I'm talking out of my hat.
Interestingly, when I looked at him, I saw a little bit of Matty Cash in terms of just the way he handles the ball at times, the way he turns on the ball, the way he likes to cross from deeper positions. I also like the Aurier comparisons. I said earlier, I think it's very, very Emery. I think he's again potentially he's not going to be a guy for this level. But I think profile wise, it is exactly sort of the best of both worlds of what Emery would want out of a fullback, in terms of a guy that can sit in, can play a bit deeper, play with a bit of physicality, and also advance down the wing, overlap, and get to the byline. I think it's a very, very interesting one. And yeah, in terms of one player to liken him to, I don't think I could come up with anyone better than Aurier.
Yeah, well, as I say, from a, I'm really just going the fact that he's that big, lanky, rangy type of fullback that can go forward and has a bit of discipline issues. That's essentially where I'm coming at that one from. So, it would be interesting. I don't even know what kind of money's been quoted. I was checking my phone there. I wasn't losing. It wasn't anything that you were saying. It was my phone flashed up there, and it was a notification. And I'm just trying to get it again. It was to do with this. I can't find it again. Apparently it's a 5 million fee that Levante are looking for, and Levante need to get him off the books to help with with their financial, I don't know, with income and outgoings. I don't know what the story is.
Yeah.
Did you see that? You saw that as well? Sorry, your audio broke up. Did you see the 5
Oh,
million as well?
sorry. Yeah, I did. I think that's quite a good deal. In terms of the potential, he could go on to be the perfect guy for the role. If he doesn't, I think he'd be a great backup player. And at 5 million, we can easily sell him for a profit. So low risk, high reward. That's what we
Whenever
like.
I think of 5 million, there's one player that always bounces inside my cranium whenever I think of 5 million, and it's Aaron Tipsoba. Is that how you pronounce his name? The guy that Villa bought from Tishbola. Sorry, Tishbola.
Oh,
That's how you pronounce it. Yeah. Bought from Reading.
Reading,
Never
yeah.
did anything and bounced around for a while. We bought him for 5 million. I thought he was going to be a star before I really started looking at players, but like he was really highly thought of. But whenever I think of 5 million, I can go, I'm okay with wasting 5 million because poor Aston Villa did that. Rich Aston Villa can surely do that on a player who's in Spanish under 19. And look, sometimes you got to speculate to accumulate. Brighton didn't pay peanuts for the majority of the players that they got. You know, yes, there's one or two stories out there, but they've paid money for some of those players that they have that are now coming through. You know, so you got to pay 5 million for potential. You know, if you want to get them young, get them early, and then blood them in your team, give them maybe 18 months or a year within the coaching structure. So 5 million is really pennies in a dollar if you can, if his value goes up sixfold, you know, over the course of a short space of time, and that's the Brighton model. So 5 million I think would be cool. Any last kind of final kind of words on him? I'm reluctant to kind of go too deep into discussing him from my own point of view, even though I've done a lot of talking, because I don't really know a whole lot about him, as I say. But have you got any other last kind of parting pieces on him that you'd like to mention?
Not particularly. I think just a summary of what I said. I think I'm skeptical that he's ready for this level yet. Just because some of those defensive issues and sort of an attacking output problem. But in terms of development, they're very fixable issues for the most part, and he's a very, very good profile fit.
And look, as I say, potentially, we always said that, you know, there is going to have to be filler pieces brought in here. We prefer to have them as potential as opposed to maybe Ludwig Augustinsen's coming in to fill up the squad that way. I myself would prefer, and that's no slight on Augustinsen. I thought he was actually pretty okay. It was just we never saw him and he got injured. But, you know, somebody who's on the 28, 29 spectrum as opposed to being on the 20, 21 spectrum of age, that to me is a bit more exciting because it's a number one resale value, which is, to be honest with you, who am I? Me talking about resale value, that's not something I usually get into. I'm going to catch fire, I think, after this because I mentioned it. But it is an actual thing, specifically when you see so many clubs in the Premier League now, even Manchester United and Newcastle talking about financial fair play. Suddenly teams are being reminded of it. So 5 million is a nice amount of money, and then hopefully he turns into a Man City youth player and someone just decides to buy him for 20 million off us without ever playing for us. That would be cool too, because I can't get my head around what's happening with the Man City Academy. I have no idea what's going on there. When Anthony Elanga, who's got 50 caps for Man United and a couple of goals, I think 4, maybe 5 goals, goes for 15 million, I can stomach that. When kids who've never played international football or never played senior football, maybe like Shea Charles, nothing against him, could turn out to be absolutely fantastic. 13 million, never played senior football, albeit has played 8 times for Northern Ireland. But like, it's not a comment on their ability. It's a comment on like, I'm a show me type person. So you know, it's just on what they've done, and those prices are fair play to Man City for getting them. Is what I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, I think that's going to do it. I nearly went off into a rant about financial fair play and Man City again, and people are sick of that. But Steve, thanks so much for joining me today at Villa Analytics, everybody. You're following him already. I always feel patronizing whenever I talk about people who've got much larger followings than I do. But I'm just appreciative of your time, Steve. And, you know, we must do this again more often because, as I say, it's been quite a long time. I'd say that Check the Toure conversation might have been the last one that we had,
I think it
and
was.
see where he went on to being linked to a 70 million pound move to Liverpool. Yeah, great. Well, very good player, but also nearly killed one of our players last year. So the less said about him, the better here until he's wearing claret and blue. But thanks so much, Steve, for coming on. Really, really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
And to everybody else, we have a giveaway going on Twitter at the moment for a Moussa Diaby shirt. All you got to do is like the tweet, retweet the tweet, and follow us on Twitter. It's simple as that. Go find the original tweet and do that, and you may be in with a chance to win the Musa Diaby shirt. The competition, in case you're watching this back after the event, competition closes on Monday, the 31st of July. We will be announcing a winner on the morning of Monday, the 31st of July. But get involved if you're only watching this now. Again, thanks a million, Steve, and thanks a million to everybody out here for watching. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.